The merits of a six-man Padres rotation, and I have a new co-host. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Friar Territory on the Foul Territory Network. I am Marty Caswell. You've seen him before. He's been a guest host, but it is now official. My guy, Darren Smith, is the new co-host of Friar Territory. Welcome, Darren.
Wow, that's some breaking news right there.
Yeah.
Way to go, Marty. Yeah, nicely done. And thank you very much to everybody at Foul Territory. It was a lot of fun to be on the broadcast the other day and hanging out with a different AJP, AJ Pierzynski, not AJ Preller, and Eric Kratz. And we got to chop it up a little bit for like 30 minutes. I've always been aware of that show. I like it. I like the style. So it was fun. And they've got a huge reach, man. I will say, I had a lot of people hit me up who I hadn't heard from in a long time who said, hey, I caught you on Foul Territory. That was amazing. Are you part of that now? Like, yeah. Okay, cool. So, I'm looking forward to it. It's nice to be able to be back engaged with the Padres in this kind of capacity. I've obviously been paying a ton of attention, but now I will be searching these games and watching these games for very specific content so that we can talk about it here on Friar Territory. So
we are all in the content business, and I am so happy to have you here, Darren. I miss Kyle Glazer. He's awesome, and hopefully he'll join us in the future as a guest, breaking it down. But it's great to have you here driving the ship. And you're going to listen to me. You're great because you've made fun of me for all my years for my allegiances to my, according to you, inferior computer products. I'm a PC person. This is a Mac, and it's been a struggle for me to go ahead and get to understand Command V versus Command C. But here we go. So we're going to have a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And you just got back from spring training. You just got back from Peoria. So
Fresh
you
back.
had your camera and your microphone everywhere, inside and outside of that complex. So
yes.
You gave us plenty to talk about. The Padres did, which is, sometimes a little bit hit or miss when it comes to spring training, right? Like what's going on very early in a spring training media session. But this was one of those years that there was quite a bit to chat about. So I think that you picked the right time to be out there before the masses and the games start upcoming this weekend. But there was plenty to sink our teeth into, and there's roster moves, and there's a front office signing, and updates on sales. So we've got plenty to get into.
There's a lot to get into. I got there at the exact right time. I could have stayed a day longer because I would have liked to have talked to the latest free agent or minor league free agent signing. That's Walker Buehler and his fit in the rotation. I saw him and Joe Musgrove. Joe Musgrove is a guy, like when there's someone new, he's going to go ahead and take him in under his wing. And of course, Michael King, his new locker mate is German Marquez. And he was glowing about, dude, this guy, we have a lot of similarities. So we'll see how that's going to go ahead and pan out. And I saw how Craig Stammen today talked about the idea of a six-man rotation for the Padres to start their season, just the way the schedule lines up, and also with a bunch of guys coming from surgery, including Joe Musgrove and Michael King, and wait and see what happens with the rest. But it's going to be interesting. He'll have some options, so it looks like a six-man rotation could be the way to go, at least for the first month of the season.
Yeah, extra man in the rotation and also some off days that you can factor in there as well. So I think it makes a lot of sense. We'll see what happens, though, because they haven't even started playing Cactus League games yet. So a lot can change between now and opening day.
A lot can change. Maybe AJ Preller is not done. I mean, right? That goes in a T-shirt. Hey, with AJ, you never know. It's always up to something. All right, Darren, you mentioned a lot of content coming from spring training, and I do want to give this some more time, some more justice, because John Seidler, who we've never really heard from, he spoke, I believe, on Monday on President's Day, and there was a lot coming from that. But I think the one that people really stuck to, it wasn't about AJ Preller and the terms of his contract undisclosed, right? The multi-year. I think it's about the idea of the San Diego Padres. Could they be sold? Could they move? And I know, even like myself, I laugh off that idea, right? But just the other day I'm running and someone says, hey, Marty, I'm sorry. I know this is like a dumb question, but what do you think? Is there any idea that the Padres could be sold? Listen, and I know I laughed it off considering, look at their attendance. Look what they're doing every single year. And look at the sort of culture they built here in San Diego with the baseball fans. But it wasn't that long ago that we never thought the Chargers were going to leave. And look what happened there. So I do want to start there. Here's comments, Darren, from John Seidler. And this is a question he was asked from Barry Bloom of Forbes magazine. Take a listen.
John, can you say whether or not a contingency of the sale of the team will be long-term stability for the Padres in San Diego?
The Padres are moving from San Diego.
John, what sort of qualities do you want to see from the next owner?
We would like to see what everybody would like to see. We would like to see somebody with ties to San Diego, a deep love of San Diego, and a deep love of baseball. So they can continue doing the work that we do in the community and providing the product on the field that the fans enjoy.
You had close relationship that AJ had with your brother. What would Peter have thought of today's news and the extension that he will be here for even longer to look for his?
I think Peter would be happy that AJ was extended. Peter and AJ had a mutual love and respect of each other and worked together great for so many years, and I'm glad to extend AJ.
Just to clarify, you say Padres not leaving San Diego. Is that going to be written into a sale contract? The team has to stay for a certain number of years?
I can't speak as to any details as to what may or may not be negotiated with an ultimate buyer, but if you look, a new buyer would be nuts to move the team out of San Diego. With the second highest attendance in all of baseball last year. We've been in the top 5 for the last 5 or 6 seasons. San Diego is a great place for baseball. Baseball is the only major sport in San Diego right now, so the opportunity is in San Diego, not elsewhere.
I'm sorry. So that was John Seidler, Eric Grubner talking about the idea of the Padres being sold. I want to take a quick pause here because I do see that a candidate for the 6-man rotation has joined the show. Give me 1 second to welcome in our next guest. That's number 44, Joe Musgrove.
You got me?
Here we go. Look at this. That's Joe Musgrove. Hi, Joe. Great to see you. Joe, Darren, Darren, Joe. It's been
you hear me right over there?
You sound great. You look great. The bright yellow, and I love these colors. You're popping here.
Yeah, I found the right backdrop for you.
You found the great back.
Amazing.
Hey, welcome to the debut show. My new co-host on Friar Territory on the Foul Territory Network. That is Darren Smith. So there you go.
What's going on, Darren?
Take it away.
Joe, it's been too long. How you been?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well. Nice to be back in camp.
Yeah, it's just like the radio show now, except you can cuss and not get us in trouble. So that's all good.
There we
well.
go. Love that.
Like Marty said, you look good, man. These spring training colors, I got to say, like seriously, like they are popping. I've been texting people going, "Yo, is this new this year? Because this stuff looks good."
Yeah, they look good, man.
Sure, absolutely.
All right,
Hey, Ben,
so
how's it feel?
How do I feel? I feel pretty good, man. I don't think I'm back at 100%. I don't think I'm done with this rehab, or I don't consider myself done with the rehab yet. I think this is going to kind of be an ongoing thing for who knows how long. But my perspective on a lot of things is like, in the end, I'm going to get where I want, and if I'm not where I want, it's not the end. I'll just kind of keep working until I feel like I'm in a spot where I don't have to think about this anymore. I don't have to put the same amount of time and hours into getting myself ready. And I can kind of just go out and perform. But I feel good right now. Ball's coming out of my hand good. I don't feel like I have, many hesitations with a lot of my stuff. I feel like it's playing how I want it to play. I'm seeing the metrics and the movement that I want to see. So I feel like I'm in a good spot for February 18th.
Joe, you threw on a backfield.
Sorry if I'm chill. I'm freezing, dude. So I'm sorry if I'm chattering a little bit.
Joe, you threw in a backfield, I think, on Monday, right? I think you and Michael King were on the same field when all the chaos was breaking at Padres camp with AJ Preller's extension. What were you able to do, and what was it like just being back there on the mound again?
Yeah, that was my first time facing hitters again in 16 months, I think, something like that. So, yeah, a lot of excitement, and I think for me it was mentally preparing myself for the excitement and the adrenaline, and making sure I kind of pulled the reins back on myself and kept myself under control, and just use this as an opportunity to get some hitters in the box and see some reactions, see some swings against my stuff, but not go out there and try to be a hero and impress people in my first time back. Just mainly, check some boxes off and, kind of take that next step forward.
Joe, I'd like to follow up on that. I think that we know physically, how difficult it must be to go through what you just went through and to work your way back, and how rewarding it must feel to be back where you should belong. Can you talk to us a little bit about the mental challenge, though, of what you had to go through? Because I think the physical stuff, we all sort of have a grasp of it, but mentally, like, what is that like to have to go through everything you went through, even just to get back to this point, and then also to continue where you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I handled it pretty well. I think the most important thing is, the perspective going into the surgery. I was fortunate to have like maybe a 7 to 10 day window between the injury and the surgery, where I got to kind of go through and experience all the emotions, and kind of feel sorry for myself for a minute, and then pick myself back up and look at what I had ahead of me. And start mentally preparing for that, knowing that it's going to be challenging. There's going to be times where I don't feel great. There's going to be frustrating times where I can't figure out what I need to fix to get myself feeling better. Um, but I think the preparation going into that allowed me to, have a consistent, one track mindset of, just constantly progressing and being okay with having a bad day, and not letting it affect me mentally, I think was the most important thing. Like physically, the days were very unpredictable. There was a good stretch of time where I just couldn't understand why I'd wake up feeling amazing some days, and some days I couldn't grab the bill of my hat. I was in so much pain. So it was frustrating. It was difficult, but I think mentally I prepared myself for all those things, and that allowed me to kind of take it with a grain of salt and just keep moving forward, and not get hung up too much on the occasional bad days or the bad stretches. So I think one of the most difficult things is as the deadline for the end of last year coming up and the possibility of maybe pitching in the postseason. Not feeling great in that last month and a half leading into that was starting to like wear on me a little bit because I knew where I needed to get, and like as that date came closer and closer, it seemed further and further away physically, like it just seemed unattainable. Um, and I would have loved to see us go further into the playoffs, but I think having us eliminated and not having the opportunity to pitch was probably best for me because if we make it to the CS and into the World Series, I could very well see myself forcing my way into those games and maybe lying a little bit about how I felt just to be a part of it. So um, probably best for me that I didn't pitch, but yeah, it was just wanting the results so bad and not getting them was like the very difficult, frustrating part.
Joe,
And
you're
especially
the
with the work I was putting in, man, I was working and working and working and like putting in doubles every day to make sure I had a chance to pitch in the postseason, and it just things weren't turning around how I wanted to. So frustrating.
I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but Joe, you're the ultimate team guy. And when you knew that Michael King, we didn't know his status, if he was going to make it back for the postseason, and you Darvish was battling something. Did you try to put more pressure on yourself to come back because of what other guys in your rotation were going through?
Um, not so much for that reason. I mean, maybe a little bit of it. Maybe like subconsciously, I felt like that was part of my job was to, step up and fill that role. And I think a lot of people were kind of counting on me. And it's hard because I guess back to your last question, one of the hardest things is having people constantly ask you, how you feeling? Are you going to be back? Are you going to be ready? And trying to answer that honestly, it was very hard because if I was honest, I would be like, hell no, I feel like shit, but maybe I won't feel like shit in a week. Maybe I'll feel better in a month. But just kind of lying to people and be like, yeah, I feel good. I'm in a good spot. Stuff's coming out. And my bullpens were good, but it was the recovery. Like I wasn't bouncing back from those feeling very good. So trying to be honest with people was very difficult. But yeah, towards the end of the stretch, it was more of a personal thing that was, eating at me. It's like I'd set this goal out and I'd worked so hard and I'd gotten so close. And then that last month, I kind of took a left turn and wasn't feeling as good. And I felt like all these plans that I had and like this high spirit of like I'm gonna have a chance to pitch were starting to dwindle away. So um, I think it was more like the selfishness of wanting to get in there and wanting to be a part of it that was the more of the contributing factor to me pushing.
And can I just ask a follow up on that, Joe? Just generally speaking, not specific to the injury, but just like the mental side of the game, the mental side of dealing with what comes with being a big leaguer, right? We all hear all the great benefits of travel and money and all that sort of stuff, and it sounds amazing, but there is another side of it. Is that something over your career that you've worked on? Like, do you do anything? As much as you work physically to get yourself prepared for these games, are there things that you've learned over the span of your career that have helped prepare you mentally for the job that you have?
Yeah, I've worked with a number of different people over my career, but one of the things I started when I was 14 years old was a program called Heffling, and this was it's a form of Kempo karate that's less about the martial arts aspect and more about the mindset aspect. This guy Gus has the short version of this is a guy named Gus Heffling goes over to China, lives there for 9, 10 years, and studies with the Silam warriors, who were a group of warriors that protected the Chinese emperor. And they used to go through this training program every day that they would do for 45 minutes before they got into their martial arts. And it was like a warm up program for them. So there is a very physical aspect to it. But the idea is that you're locking the mind in and you're focusing on each individual movement, as its own thing, and, staying focused on the task at hand and not letting the outside or inside interferences affect that task at hand. And this is a program I started doing at 14 years old. And back then, I think I saw it more as like a physical training thing. I was just always pushing to physically get myself in good shape and, be the best at it. And I didn't really understand what the purpose of the workout was as I got older. And I've continued to do this program, since I was 14. Now I'm understanding what the purpose of it is and how you can challenge yourself mentally to stay focused during this entire workout and not let your mind wander. Not anticipate how long is this exercise going to last or what exercise is next, or maybe I can take a little break here because it's getting hard and I know there's more to come. So it's really like self-awareness and finding out, where you kind of set traps for yourself and how you'll convince yourself out of doing certain things. And it's ultimately like that your mind will give up on yourself before your body will give up. Um, so that's kind of the basis of everything that I do and the foundation of me as an athlete. And then since then, I've worked with a number of different breath coaches. I did the deep end fitness stuff underwater for a couple years, and all those things just create new awarenesses and develop different traits that I've been able to add into my game. Um, but for me now, it's kind of like just become part of me. So everything that I do, I kind of take that mindset, whether it's doing dishes, washing the car. It's like I just try to take a strong, detailed aspect in everything that I'm doing. And that stuff just kind of becomes who you are and it translates into baseball and everything that I do. So
Are you this intense at everything that you approach? Because it seems like it. It just seems like it a little bit. And by the way, I apologize to you for the number of times I asked you last season, "Hey Joe, what do you think? What do you think? Postseason?"
job,
No, I feel
it's part of
terrible.
your
Like,
job,
oh my
I get it.
gosh, it's harassing
Let
you.
me just
And a
get
lot of
Marty
it's
out of here. I'm feeling great, Marty.
yeah. A lot of it's teammates too, though. I mean, like the guys care for you, and as a teammate, you're always, you're conditioned to like check in on your guys and
Yeah.
show that you care and that you're curious of where they're at. But it becomes more of a hassle than anything. It's I almost want people to just fuck off and let me work. Um, but yeah, it is kind of something that I am very intense in a lot of things that I do, and I try to take pride in everything I do, whether it's folding laundry, like I said, or dishes or whatever. And like the dish thing came up the other night. Uh, my fiance tends to look for the most efficient and quickest route to do things. And I'll be pissed off if there's, grease left on a pan or there's, a piece of silverware that's not shining. And she's big on the dishwasher. I'm a big hand washer. So
Wow.
yeah, it's not a very serious thing, but I found myself, you know, it's easier for me to stay in this mode than it is to turn it on and turn it off. So it's kind of just become who I am.
Gosh, this like Joe Musgrove, he's just like us. I mean, it's like the same exact conversation I have at my house about the dishes, but
Right?
neither here nor
Yeah.
there. Joe, what are the, for you coming back now, coming out, and one of the things I'm always also fascinated in is, the trajectory of a major leaguer, especially a pitcher, right? Early on in your career, I don't know how accurate a site like Baseball Savant is, but, you were kind of a different guy than you were towards 2024 in terms of pitch selection and percentages. What are you
Mhm.
expecting from yourself? Did you use this time to say, hey, maybe there's a couple of things that like I can evolve on, or there are things that I want to work on, or there might be a new version of me, not to share trade secrets, but are there things that we
Yeah.
would recognize and maybe some things that we won't when we see you back out there?
Yeah. I think the usage might change a little bit. Um, in the past, I'd always had this concern of like overusing the breaking ball. Um, one, because the breaking balls had good action, but I wasn't very consistent on like locating them, throwing them to back doors, throwing them to, the front hip of certain hitters. So it was more just like setting up middle and ripping pitches and just relying on the nastiness of the pitch, not necessarily the location or the time of when I'm using them. And for health reasons, like I just didn't think that I could sit there and rip off slider after slider after slider and not have any consequence from it. So always like kind of health related, and then just trust in the pitch that I didn't have back then. And then in the end of my 2020 season in Pittsburgh, they talked about what a good pitch my curveball was and that I should be using it a little more. And I had just kind of been middle of the road pitcher, mid fours ERA, just kind of very average. I threw a lot of strikes, but gave up some damage here and there. So I made an adjustment, and with a 60-game season, I was like, this is a chance to kind of go out there and pitch with a heavier, breaking ball percentage in a shorter season where I'm not going to have to sustain this for 32 starts. I just got to put it out there for 12. And I got really good results from it. And throughout that process, I, changed my arm motion a little bit. I shortened up my arm action in the back a lot, which made me more consistent and put my arm in a better position to stay healthier. And I got really good results. So traded over here in 21, and AJ had a few ideas after talking to the pitching department about, using the sinker more to lefties and doing things that were very outside of what I had ever done. And I kind of fought back on it. I was like, I don't throw my sinker to lefties. You used to tell me to throw it. That's not a pitch I've ever thrown. I'm not comfortable with it. And I went out in spring, and I think I threw to Kansas City and gave up like 7 runs. And I said, well, that's what happens when I throw the sinker to lefties, just kind of like, and I wanted it to work, like I wanted it to work. It just wasn't. So, I kind of went back to my way of pitching, and I was like, you brought me here to be successful, and this is how I know how to do it. I'm not shutting that down completely, but I don't want to come in here and like completely lose all the ground I had made up in the last year with the breaking balls and stuff. So I kind of went back to my game plan, and they saw how it worked and how it played, and gave me a few adjustments on the sweeper. We started throwing the sweeper a little more. And that just kind of became who I was. So coming back this year, I mean, off of surgery, I don't expect to be that 50% breaking ball guy anymore. At least not right out of the gates. But I did work a lot on delivery and like trying to improve on my fastball. I feel like I had good results with the fastball because I didn't use it a ton. So when I did show it, it was kind of a surprise pitch to people, and I usually locate it really well so I can get it to the spots I want. But the metrics of the pitch and the performance of it wasn't great. I just had decent results on it. So I put a lot of work in on just getting a true fastball that had a little more ride and carry and something that I can use to the top and bottom of the zone. Um, and then, started really working on that sinker to the lefties, which is still going to be like a very sparingly used pitch, but something that I can use on the inner half to lefties. Guys that tend to lay off of the inner half, or if I'm not getting guys to chase the breaking balls to the back foot, it's something that I can use to kind of re-engage them, show them that, if it starts in, it's not always going to be a ball. I can run something back over the plate. That'll be a strike, and just kind of re-engage hitters in the at bat. So I'm not sure how it's going to look. I think a lot of it's going to be dictated on how I feel physically, what I'm capable of doing. If I feel capable to throw the 50% breaking ball, I'd love to go back to that. But I just don't know if that's going to be doable right out of the gate. So it's going to be a lot of, just trial and error and seeing how the body responds.
You made it clear to us, Joe, at FanFest that you were going to be smart about pushing yourself and when you're going to come back, and that you would skip a start, but with the whole goal, you want to be ready when the games count, September and October. So how important has it been for you to be honest with Craig Stammen, with Ruben Niebla, and what to you, and I know you map things out. You have an idea when everything's going to happen. What are you envisioning as the best way for you to proceed?
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of credit to them. They've really putting a lot of trust in me. I told Ruben, and Stammen at the start of camp, I said, I want you to treat me as normal as possible and let me tell you when I need a break or when I need a day. And they were on board with that. I mean, I feel like that is the best way. If you have a pitcher that understands himself and, is a hard worker and is doing the things that he needs to do, I think you should give him some trust to like, hey, I need a day, and like now's the time for it. Or like, I feel good, let's keep pushing. So it's going to be just a lot of back and forth for us. But yeah, ultimately I want to be ready, when the games start counting, whether that's in April, first game of the season, end of March, or if that's, a month into the season. The idea of me making 32 starts this year might not be realistic. 180 innings might not be realistic. So if that means I got to start, 2-3 weeks into the season, I'm fine with that. If I'm good on opening day and I got to take a break, a little bit before All-Star break, I'm fine with that. It's just going to be, how am I going to get myself to be sharp and feeling strong still when September, October comes? So I don't really know what that looks like yet, but I got a few ideas of how we're going to do it based on how I'm feeling at the time.
I know your manager, Craig Stammen, today talked about the idea of a six-man rotation. And by the way, speaking of that six-man rotation, there's a lot of candidates for the fifth and that sixth spot.
Yeah.
I know what it's like for the media and the fans watching the past 5 days. What was it like for guys in that clubhouse seeing the whirlwind of movement from AJ Preller?
Yeah, exciting. I mean, the saying, like, you can never have enough starting pitching. um, I think everyone looks at the opening day rosters, and you look at how strong everybody's lineups look and how strong the rotations look, and it's very rare that those things stay consistent throughout the whole year. There's constantly injuries, there's lack of performance, there's family issues that happen. People might have to step away for a little bit. So
Mm.
I think everyone in here is under the understanding that, hey, if it's not me right away, it's going to be me at some point, and just keep myself ready. I think, maybe for some of the guys that are on the brink of making the rotation, the 4 or 5 guys, could be a little more stress for them now that there's more competition in camp. But I mean, I don't think we're a group that shies away from that. I think um, we're very clear on what's expected of you here. And I think guys are going to compete the same way, whether they have more competition or, what we started with when spring started. So I love it though. We got, a lot of guys that have been really good in the past and have had success and, maybe are coming off injuries. You look at Walker and Herman, even Griff, those guys are all coming off some significant injuries. And Bueller's had a couple years back now, and Marquez 1 year back. But knowing how I feel coming off of Tommy John and seeing what they've gone through since being back in games, it's not easy. So sometimes it takes that 2 year, 2.5 year mark until you start feeling like, God, I feel like normal again. Like I can really let the ball go. And a part of it is like, you got to figure out how to throw again. The elbow, the structure of your elbow is different. So nothing moves how it used to move. The timing of your delivery is off now because things aren't able to take the same force that they were right away. So in a sense, you kind of got to reteach yourself how to pitch. And it's difficult, especially when you're used to doing things a certain way for so long. And now everything changes and you got to find a way to still get outs at a highest level at competition. So, and especially when you're in season, like time to sit and contemplate and over evaluate and think, because sometimes you just got to get it and go and figure it out on the fly as you're moving. So um, I think those guys are proven big leaguers that have had a lot of success, and I think they can have success again. I think with the staff we got here and Ruben's team of guys, I think they'll fit right in.
How would Joe Musgrove, the Padre fan, have felt about seeing Walker Buehler come walking in, putting on the brown and gold?
I think they'd gladly welcome it, man. I would gladly welcome it. I think as a ball player, man, like we love this game so much. I don't think it's easier for a fan to say, "How could you go play for the other side?" But as a ball player, you're trying to make money, provide for your family, and you don't want to walk away from the game. And if that's the only opportunity you got, I think you take it. Um,
Mhm.
and I think there's always a little more animosity from the fan base towards each other than there is from players and one another. I mean, there's definitely a thing between us and the Dodgers. We don't care for them too much; they don't care for us. But it's not this pure level of hatred that you see from some of the fan base. We all understand we're playing the same game here. We're all here for the same reason. Um, and there is a lot of crossover. So at some point, you're going to play with these guys in the same clubhouse. Sometimes you play on the other team. So there's always a certain level of respect that you carry for one another. So yeah, it's probably some good conversation on Twitter right now. But for us in here, we're welcome. We're welcomed in with open arms. Good
A lot of
Yeah,
competitor
that's what I was
too.
saying. Put yourself back in the seats as a fan.
yeah.
Craig Stammen,
Yeah.
obviously, great teammate, great human being. You guys are all on the record talking about your affection for him. What's it been like with Craig Stammen as a manager?
Yeah, it's been good. Our camp's been great so far. I think Craig understands the flow of a camp and how some guys prepare really well in the off season. They're 5, 6, 7 days a week prepping and getting ready. Some guys a little bit less, but going from most guys are running a Monday to Friday schedule and having the weekends off to coming into spring, and now it's every day for 30 days straight. Leading into a 162 game season. It's very easy to wear your guys out in spring and pick up little injuries just by being out on the cleats and being on the field longer than you need to be. So I think he's run a really good schedule here and minimize some of the time that we spend on the field,
Hmm.
which ultimately allows guys to invest more in their individual work. I mean, you look at our fields in the morning, there's every single field is taken and everybody's out there getting early work in, which is where you really get better as a player. The individual early work where it's just you and your coaches and you're working on a specific part of your game, and then you get together for the team fundamental. And in our camp those are 10 minutes. It's real quick in and out, make sure we're all working as a unit well together. But I've been part of other camps where we spend 35, 40 minutes on on the group fundamental stuff, and then nobody wants to go out and do early work. No one wants to get their individual stuff because you're just beat. It's like a lot of stuff in the day. So I think the schedule right now is allowing everybody to get out there and get their individual work, work on the things that they specifically need worked on. And then we'll get together as a group and we'll put it all together and make sure all the communication's right and the signaling's right. And then we get off the field and we get in here and get our lifts in and our training recovery. But Craig's really big on the bookends of the day. Same with Ruben. Is like we prepare really, really well, and then when our day's over, we come in and we do the recovery. We get all the treatment and stuff we need so that we can get back and do it again the next day. I think those are the things that are extremely important in spring to stay healthy and to get yourself ready. Is to focus on what you need to get done, and cut out some of the extra work of just standing in a huge group of 60 guys and maybe getting one rep in the 25-minute drill. So Craig's been great. I mean, the speeches he's given us, he seems comfortable in the role. He seems like he's in charge of the room, and he's really putting a lot of trust in his staff to go out there and do what he hired them to do.
He is a man comfortable in his own skin. That's been just obvious immediately. I do want to ask you about one of all the new guys, one guy in particular, and that would be Nick Castellanos. I know that AJ Preller, when he addressed the media about the signing and why he was comfortable, said that he did speak to some of the leaders on this team before he signed him. And when I think of the leaders in the team, I think of a guy like you. What was that conversation like, and what did you have to consider before you're like, yeah, why not?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure some of it is about some of the stuff that's come out recently about Nick and his issue in Philly with that Miami game. But as a player, I don't think anybody in here has an issue with that. We know the kind of player he is. He speaks his mind. He's very confident in what he believes in, and he's a veteran of the game. He's been around a long time. He's played on really good teams. He's played with a number of different future Hall of Famers. And he's a guy that does things the right way. He prepares, he shows up, he's ready to work, very serious about how he goes about his work. So yeah, AJ's always cautious of, adding someone to a group, um, and making sure he checks in with guys and make sure it's someone that we feel is going to fit in our group and somebody that, we want on board. Which I think you don't see in every organization. A lot of times it's just like, here's your pieces, figure it out, make it work. We're really big on the culture of the clubhouse and the culture of the team. So if somebody comes in and they're not fitting that bill and they're not getting on board with what we got, our guys also have no problem saying, hey, this is a guy that doesn't belong here. But AJ's great. He always comes in and brings that stuff to us, includes us in it, which I feel like empowers the players and it makes you take a little more responsibility and um, in your actions and what you say. But yeah, we love Nick over here. I'm glad we got him.
Joe, I just have one final one because I could do this all day, and I know you probably have better things to do. But I
Dishes.
always
dishes at
appreciated
home.
one
Yes,
thing
dishes.
about right the dishes and all. I appreciate something that AJ said recently. You're in a division with the Dodgers, and everybody knows it, right? And common perception is everybody's just playing for second place in the NL West. And AJ's, I don't think he says it just because he feels like it's the right thing to say, because like, oh yeah, we're not there to just give up the division. For guys that are in that clubhouse, I mean, do you view it as such? Do you think like, listen, like we're not here to just give in to them? We're not here to just let the Dodgers run away with the NL West. AJ said, like, our goal is, not to just qualify for the playoffs. If that's what it is, fine. But like we still, are entering every single season thinking about we want to be division champs, as unrealistic as the outside public might think that is. How do you view
Yeah.
all of that?
Yeah, I view it just like that. I think the guys in here compete, at the same level, regardless of the circumstances. So regardless of how, powerful the other teams in our division are, we don't have to play them 160 times a year. We got to take care of business against the teams that we're supposed to beat and take care of business, away from those guys, knowing that when we go in and play them, it's going to be a hard fight. And we don't expect to win 90% of those games. Those best teams, you're looking for a split. You're looking to get out of there and not have a negative record against that team. But we feel like we're capable of competing for this division just as much as the Dodgers are. We understand and we respect how good they are as a team and the firepower they have over there. But um, it's all about how you put those pieces together. And like I said, you play them a handful of times a year, So it's not like we're running up against this juggernaut team every single game. You know, we got to take care of our business so that at the end of the game or at the end of the season, we're right there with them in the running.
Joe, my last question to you, actually, it's something that Darren and I were discussing before you joined us today, and that was the comments from John Seidler. He was being asked about the idea of the team being sold and relocation. Has John spoken to any of the players in that clubhouse about the plan for this team moving forward? Has that, or has he not really done that?
I mean, not a detailed conversation.
Okay.
He spoke to us a couple days ago. Just kind of saying the same thing. Like, hey, I know you guys are probably, hearing a lot of stuff and, have a lot of questions about where the team's going and the sale of the team. Pretty much said, if you guys have questions, feel free to come find me, give me a call. I'll tell you what I can tell you. But I mean, there's certain things that, we're not even allowed to hear or know. There's certain things that on the business side, they just don't share with anybody. And I understand that. I'm not looking for, every answer that there is to have, but, as players, your biggest concern obviously is the guy that buys the team or the person that takes the team over. Are they going to be interested in winning or making money? And I feel like whoever takes this team, I can't imagine they'd come in and not want to keep pushing in the right direction. We've already committed a lot of money to players on this team. They got the city behind you more than you ever have in San Diego. And it's a stadium that's filling out every single night. So I find it very hard to believe that whoever comes in is going to backtrack and, cut payroll and start minimizing things. I feel like the smart move, especially if you're spending what you're about to spend on the Padres, is to double down and keep adding and keep going forward. This is, the best window we got right now. These players, we're only getting older. Our contracts are getting shorter. So yeah, I would love to see whoever comes in, commit to winning here and continuing to add to this team.
I think you just spoke for every single guy in your clubhouse as well as that fan base, and you're right. Joe Musgrove, you are the absolute best. 10 years from now, when you're done, when you're thinking about hanging it up, I really think that you should be the new co-host with Darren on Friar Territory. Or you could even take over the Foul Territory Network, man. You're meant for this, and you've got a great voice. You've got a great voice too. That's key. It's key.
I appreciate that, you guys. Thank you.
All right,
you don't want to follow in Stammen's footsteps? You don't want to go down that pathway and be managing this team in 3 years?
I've got to deal with enough stress on the playing side. I don't know if I want to be the one answering questions all day.
Give me one name in that clubhouse you think could be the next Stammen. Who's the next guy?
I think Michael King could be that guy. I think Jake Cronenworth could be that guy.
100%.
Yeah, those two guys kind of stick out to me, but dude, it's hard, man. I mean, I think you have to have like a passion to want to do this, and it's so much more than just making the right calls. Part of it is the fucking paperwork. I don't want to sit here and write reports all night. Like, I love the idea of helping guys out, and I'll share all the knowledge I got about pitching, but I don't want to sit here every night and write reports and be in meetings all day long. I just don't want to do that shit. So
isn't that why you get an assistant manager?
Yeah, right. I love the game, and I can't imagine my life without baseball in some aspect, but I just don't know what it looks like, and it's hard to even picture it until I'm done, and I don't have an option as a player anymore. I think maybe some new things will excite me, but yeah, right now that's not even in my sights.
All right, co-host of this, done deal.
Co-host,
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Joe. You're the best. Take care. All right.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Talk to you
See ya.
soon. Wow, Joe Musgrove, he's the best. He's the best. He can just take over the entire show. That guy, he can, just interesting cat. Wow. So many layers. And and he loves to wash dishes. Very intense.
I mean, like, that's literally a conversation that just happened in my house in Imperial Beach. So it's like hit home. I got like looking around about the dishes and the dishwasher and who does. Anyhow, not really the point here. I mean, it's just, I think, I'm always fascinated. I think everybody understands how difficult the rehab is when you're coming back from a significant injury, especially when you're talking about being a pitcher and the elbow, the shoulder, whatever, the elbow in this case. But like so much of it is so interesting about the mental side too, because like, you just don't feel like you're a part of the team, and it doesn't matter what they're willing to do. Like,
and he traveled. He was at every single game, and he traveled with the team, and he wanted to feel like he was part of the team. And we saw him out there running the outfield and with his dog. I mean, that must have been tough. And now I feel so bad. I'm thinking of how many times we, the media, would corner Michael King and Joe Musgrove and, hey, what do you think? What's it looking like in timetable? And now it's like, dude, get out of my face. Stop asking me these dumb questions.
Yeah. Right.
Terrible.
But Yeah, and it's got to be, that's the whole mental side of it, and it's, I've heard from other athletes before, like it's obviously difficult when you're injured and you can't contribute and the team is struggling. Sometimes it messes with you, not that you're a bad teammate, but when the team is having success, you're like, think about us in our old radio days. Like if we took some time off, like deep down, like you wanted the show to be good, but you didn't want it to be that good. You're kind of like,
I know.
I don't really need them to start thinking about, they could live without me.
Yeah.
And, when you're an athlete, that stuff can mess with you mentally as well. So
Yep.
you got to be super tough mentally between the ears and physically in order to go through something like that. So it messes with you in ways I think a lot of people don't often focus on. So glad to know that he's on the right pathway there. And I look forward to seeing what it looks like, like will it just be the Joe from 2024 or is there a chance this is new and improved and such? So that should be
like he said,
one of the stories.
And he's going to hear it from the guys who are in that clubhouse with him. And a guy like Walker Buehler, he said, 2.5 years before you might really, really feel like yourself. So we'll see what happens. Hey, Darren, you and I, before Joe joined us, and that was thank you, Joe Musgrove. That was awesome. It really was. And you and I started talking about John Seidler, the idea of that the team could relocate, which was something that was written about by, I think, Barry Bloom of, was it Forbes magazine?
Forbes. Yep.
So
who asked the question?
Yeah, that was Barry Bloom that asked the question. He was there. And no, I did not call him, and I did not continue the conversation about John Morris, okay? But let's go ahead and I do want to finish that clip, and then I want you to go ahead and give me your thoughts on it. Here we go.
John, can you say whether or not
Top 5 for the last 5 or 6 seasons.
Okay, sorry.
May or may not be negotiated with an ultimate buyer. But if you look, a new buyer would be nuts to move the team out of San Diego. With the second highest attendance in all of baseball last year, we've been in the top 5 for the last 5 or 6 seasons. San Diego is a great place for baseball. Baseball is the only major sport in San Diego right now. So the opportunity is in San Diego, not elsewhere.
Darren, you've been through a lockout before. Are there any preparations being made right now in case there's a lockout, this winter?
Yeah, our primary focus right now is on 26, and I think we'll turn our attention to 27 in earnest as we get closer to 27. But anytime there's a CBA that's going to be up, we always plan for all potential outcomes and contingencies. So some of that planning's already taken place, but the full focus, especially now that we're in camp and getting ready for the season, is on 26.
So that was John Seidler talking about the next owner would be a fool to think about moving the Padres out of San Diego, given Petco Park and the fan base and the sellouts and the attendance. So Darren, take it away.
Well, Marty, I'm going to start by saying I'm going to overlook John Seidler, not acknowledging that there is a Major League Soccer team in town. And on behalf of Manny Machado and everybody at San Diego Football Club, I will just credit that to John Seidler's a little bit older and maybe doesn't pay attention to professional soccer. We'll move on from that. I will say it probably wasn't a case of him being petty. That said, your star third baseman is an investor in this team.
Yes,
anyhow,
and he flew half the team out last year for the first game.
You would think that was probably not something that we should overreact to or read into about some of the stuff that Manny said earlier in the week. But I'm willing to move on and just move past that and say he's an older guy, probably doesn't care at all about soccer and things like the Big Four. Listen, it's a good soundbite about the relocation. It's a good soundbite, but ultimately, I don't know that John Seidler really has any authority there. Like, that's not really the way things work. You don't sell something and then, say, hey, you can't do something. It's not the way that works. No owner wants to be told that they cannot move. So, I think that it's more, it's a good soundbite, but it doesn't mean anything. I agree with him. I agree with everything he's saying. Like, you'd be a fool to move this team out of San Diego.
Wait a second. Or was he saying only a fool would move a major league franchise out of San Diego?
Yeah.
Actually, when I play it back, was he calling out Dean Spanos? Is that what I was? Is that who he was calling out? Okay.
Could be. Yeah. Maybe there was all sorts of passive aggressive commentary there from John Seidler. Who knows? Maybe he's just taking shot after shot after shot at people, or maybe it's just like, hey, like this doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about? For all the reasons that we all say. However, that's not going to work. No major league owner ever wants to be put in a situation where he's told that he cannot do something with their franchise. So that's just, it's a soundbite. That's all it is. And it gave people the warm and fuzzies, but ultimately it's just meaningless.
Okay, I'll tell you this, Darren. I'm already forming the first question I plan to ask the new owner, whomever that is, Dan Freakin. I hope it's you. Just because John Seidler said I would like somebody with San Diego roots, that's the only guy of the known candidates. Now, he did mention there's other guys under candidates that are unknown that we don't know about. But my first question is, will you sign a blood oath in your own blood that you will never move the Padres out of San Diego? Because until someone says, not happening, and even when they say that, that may not be enough. We shall see.
May not.
We shall see.
And that's just unfortunately the state of professional sports in the United States. That these things doesn't feel like it's anywhere close to being a topic, but it's been brought up. I also would want to know, well, what role is John Seidler even going to have? Is he still going to be around, or do he and the rest of the Seidlers pack up and go back up north? I don't know. I mean, a lot was made about how involved he was, unbeknownst to anybody around here.
I'm going to say
Does that
no.
mean he has any sort of future around here, or are we just never going to see this guy again after the sale's done?
I would be surprised. When the sale is done, I'd be surprised. I mean, he's not really... I saw him at the Miracle Field, the ribbon cutting that Joe Musgrove and Jackson Merrill were at, but I don't know that he's really an active participant. I don't know that guys know him. They know Tom Seidler, who's the director of community relations with the Padres. He's everywhere. He's around the team. People know him, but I think John Seidler. This is not something that he signed up for. When Peter bought the team and he had his brother in a certain role, we wouldn't even know John even existed. I think he inherited that situation because of Peter's tragic death. But I don't think that him being involved with the day-to-day operations of a baseball team is anything that he ever wanted to do or is comfortable doing. So I'd be surprised if he were still involved.
But we know when he got this gig, right? There was, a little bit of a PR campaign to sell this person. As somebody who was, what are you talking about? He was going to all these games all the time. You guys just didn't know what you were looking for, right? And, does that continue? Is that still who he is? Or does he just move on and say, hey, peace out. San Diego, I'll just look at you in the rearview mirror because I'm going to go back to
LA,
where we've been for the majority. Again, it's not important. It isn't important, but again, it was a good soundbite, and it certainly sounds, Marty, like it's confirmation. I think that things are moving. Things are happening. So it does sound like we're closer than we would have thought a couple of weeks ago to some sort of resolution and some new information on the subject.
It'll be interesting. Darren, this has been an amazing first show. First official show. You've been good enough to join me in past shows, but man, you, Joe Musgrove, fantastic. What's your plan for show number 2? How do we top that? How do we top how good Joe Musgrove was?
Ain't gonna be easy.
Hey, by the way, and you asked me last night, can we curse on this show? Here's your answer. If you're Joe Musgrove, you can.
Yeah. I mean, that's I like. I mean, this is the way players talk.
I know, it is.
This is the way that athletes speak. Although, still to be determined if Craig Stammen actually uses this kind of language or not.
I found the answer because someone sent me a clip of him talking to some coaches yesterday.
Okay.
The answer is yes, and he does.
Okay, good. So I mean, again, I don't want to cuss here just for the sake of cussing.
No.
But every once in a while, some of those words, Marty, that's the only word that can be used in the English language, and
I understand.
Some of them are irreplaceable.
Okay. By the way, I do want to play one final clip from Manny because I feel like when all's said and done, we want to go ahead and give Manny Machado his victory lap, right? Because he's the guy. We went to his locker on, was it Sunday? On Sunday, and he's like, dude, how come one guy has an extension and the other guy doesn't? So I do want to give Manny Machado his due.
The other guy was the guy in yellow on that clip. If
the other guy,
watching
that would be
Friar Territory. Yeah, that's why I wonder, are we still doing this?
It's interesting. So we're gonna go ahead and play. I asked Manny. I think I have a question in here. Give it a listen. Here we go. This is on Monday, minutes after the news broke on Preller's extension. Manny, you made the case several times yesterday for AJ Preller to be extended. What was your reaction to the news that he has been?
He got extended? As you can tell, I'm looking for my phone. Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's signed? Damn, so I should have spoken 3 months ago or something. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. It's awesome. I think, I don't know anyone that loves this organization and cares about this organization, cares about this franchise, cares about these players in this clubhouse more than that person. I don't think it's any of us BSing around here about when we speak about AJ. I think it's just genuine. I think he's truthful to all his players, loyal to the guy and to the guys, and it's awesome to see that he's going to be here. I think he started this all, and we all believe in him. We know what he's made up and what he does for this franchise. So yeah, it's awesome to have him here. And to continue to help us succeed at the highest level, and to continue to build to bring a championship to the city of San Diego.
That was Manny. I should have spoken up 3 months ago. Imagine all the content we would have been denied, Darren.
The man of the people, Manny of the people.
Manny of the
Machado.
people. Yeah, the
I
captain.
am fascinated by
yeah.
him saying, as you can tell, I'm looking for my phone. Like what's going on there?
Come on.
What's on your phone here? What do we need to see happening in the background? Are you searching for information on a social media platform, or do you guys have some Slack channel? What's the deal? So, well, listen, I think whether you like AJ Preller or don't like AJ Preller, you can tell that there's certainly an affinity for that general manager, that executive in this clubhouse that is unique. And, it doesn't mean that they're always going to be best friends, and he's going to have to make some tough decisions. He could trade some of these guys that are speaking up for him. That's just the nature of it, but they feel like he's a straight shooter, and, they certainly seem to respect him in ways that you don't, that I don't want to say it's uncommon, but maybe not as common in other places.
The outpouring is notable, especially considering the back and forth, Bryce Harper and the issues he's having with Dombrowski in Philly. So I think it's pretty notable. So listen, all right, one major storyline is off the table. So now we have the future of the sale, the 6-man rotation, the backup catcher, Darren. But thank goodness we have more Friar Territory up ahead next week. Hey, I want to remind people, don't forget to like and to subscribe to the show at Friar Territory, and get all your baseball news from Foul Territory TV, the whole network. It's nonstop. They do a great job. They're on tour right now in, I think in Peoria, not in Peoria, in the Cactus League.
Yes, and we've been told that we will receive significant bonuses if you all can pick us up on social media. So
yes,
please do us a favor and go find the Friar Territory media channels and make sure that you keep us in this lifestyle that we're accustomed to.
Okay. All right, Darren. It's been fun. Appreciate you. That's Darren Smith. I'm Marty Caswell. Thank you so much for watching Friar Territory on the Foul Territory Network. Have a great day. We will talk to you soon.